Do you love horror games? If you love horror games, then you're going to want to stick around for this one. Today we're taking a look at Give Us a Sign, what makes it creepy, how the gameplay works, and most importantly, is it actually worth playing? Let's get into it. What is Give Us a Sign? At its core, Give Us a Sign is a horror game built around investigating the paranormal. You're exploring a creepy location, looking for clues, trying to figure out what's going on. Because apparently having common sense is illegal in horror games, well, you'll be walking directly towards things that would make any normal person run the opposite direction. There's a strange noise? Let's investigate. The lights just went out? Let's investigate. Something just moved in the hallway? Guess what? We're investigating. There's a demon standing 3 feet away? Well, maybe we should investigate. The big idea here is communication with the paranormal. You're not just wandering around waiting for a monster to jump out at you. You're trying to interact with whatever is haunting the location and figure out what it's trying to tell you. That just makes the experience a whole lot more interesting because you're constantly wondering, was that actually a sign or am I just losing my mind? One of the first things that stands out is the atmosphere. And horror games live or die by the atmosphere. You can have the scariest monster ever created, but if I'm looking at it in a brightly lit room while some cheerful elevator music is playing, I'm probably going to laugh. Thankfully, Give Us a Sign understands that. Sometimes the scariest thing you can show players is nothing. Just an empty hallway, a door that's slightly open, light flickering in the distance, and that tiny voice in your head saying, you probably shouldn't go in there. So naturally, we go in there, because apparently we're the protagonist. This game does a great job making you feel like something could happen at any moment. And honestly, worse than that, constant jump scares. When you know a jump scare is coming, you're waiting for it. But when the game keeps you guessing, that's when you start becoming paranoid. You'll hear a noise behind you, immediately turn around, nothing. You keep walking, another noise, turn around, nothing. And eventually you're just spinning in circles like, show yourself. Meanwhile, the ghost is probably sitting in the corner thinking, this guy is exhausting. The gameplay revolves around exploration and investigation. You're looking for clues, interacting with environment, and trying to understand what's happening around you. And I really like that about games that encourage you to actually pay attention. Because in a lot of horror games, you basically turn your brain off. Walk forward, find key, open the door, get scared, repeat. But games like this are much more interesting when you actually have to think about what you're seeing. You might notice something in a room that you didn't see before. You might hear something that wasn't there a few minutes ago. Or you might find something that makes you question what's happening in the location you're exploring. And that's where the mystery starts to become more important than the actual scares. You're not just thinking, how do I survive? You're thinking, okay, what's happening here? And then, 5 seconds later, actually, never mind. I don't need to know that badly. But here's what I think is the most interesting part about Give Us a Sign. It's the uncertainty. You don't always know what you're dealing with. And that's terrifying. Because if I know there's a monster chasing me, at least I have a goal. Run. That's the goal. That's the entire strategy. But when the game makes you question whether something is actually happening, that's when it gets inside your head. And once a horror game gets inside your head, it doesn't really matter what happens on screen anymore. You're actually scared. So after spending some research on Give Us a Sign, my biggest takeaway is that it isn't trying just to be another generic horror game. The paranormal investigation angle gives you something to actually focus on. You're not simply just waiting for the next jump scare. You're exploring, you're searching, and you're trying to understand the story. And you're constantly wondering what the game is going to throw at you next. Of course, that doesn't mean you're going to survive every encounter, because sometimes the game basically looks at you and says, you know what? You've had enough. So, do you think Give Us a Sign is worth it? If you're into paranormal horror, exploration, creepy environment, and games that make you question what happened around you, then I think it's definitely worth checking out. Especially if you enjoy horror games that the atmosphere and the mystery are just as important as the actual scares. If you do decide to play this yourself when it releases, just remember, if something's telling you to go into the basement, don't. You hear something behind you, don't turn around. If a ghost asks you to follow it, definitely do not follow it. And if the game gives you a sign that says run, you bet your ass you better run. Overall, Give Us a Sign has a really interesting premises, and the paranormal investigation aspect gives it a nice look. This is the kind of horror game where the mystery makes you want to keep exploring, even when every part of your brain telling you to leave. And that's probably the best complaint I can give a horror game. But that's going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments. Would you actually investigate a haunted location if you knew you could communicate with whatever was inside?